on what is known as the social wage, providing various forms of support, basic services and assistance to households and individuals to combat poverty and hunger. And in support of this work, to counter the rising costs of living, we will continue with the Social Relief of Distress Grant, which the Minister of Finance will talk to when he presents his budget, which currently reaches 7.8 million people. We will ensure that existing social grants, yes, are provided and are even increased to cushion the poor against rising inflation. And this will be set out in the budget that the Minister will provide. Work is underway to develop a mechanism for targeted basic income support for the most vulnerable, while within our fiscal constraints. This will build on the innovation we introduced through the SRD fund, or grant rather, including linking the data that we have across government to make sure we reach all those who are in need. National Treasury is considering the feasibility of urgent measures to mitigate the impact of load shedding on food prices. This year, we will take steps to unlock massive value for poor households by expediting the provision of title deeds for subsidized housing. The current backlog in processing title deeds is over 1 million houses, which amounts to an estimated 242 billion rand in assets that should be in the hands of South Africa's poorest households. We will focus not just on eradicating this backlog, but on making the title deed system more effective and much more accessible. As we undertook in the State of the Nation address last year, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has finalized the transfer of 14,000 hectares of state land for housing. Access to quality education for all is the most powerful instrument we have to end poverty. We need to start with children who are very young, providing them with the foundation that they need to write and read for meaning, to learn and to develop. It is therefore significant that the number of children who receive the Early Childhood Development Subsidy has more than doubled between 2019 and 2022, reaching 1.5 million children. But we still have a long way to go, as there are some 7 million children that we've got to reach. The Department of Basic Education is streamlining the requirements of the Early Childhood Development Centers to access support and enable thousands more to receive subsidies from government. While at the other end of the basic education journey, we must applaud, as I said earlier, last year's matric pass rate, because it has a number of indicators for us. And the increase has been across all provinces where we've shown improvement. This was up from 76% the year before. The share of bachelor passes in the no-fee schools, and these are schools that are quintile 1 to quintile 3, improved from 55% in 2019 to 64% in 2022. Now, these are children who come from very poor families, and that is why they are classified as no-fee schools, where government supports their education fully. The improvement that we are seeing is quite phenomenal. This means that the performance of learners from poor schools is steadily improving, confirming the value of the support that government provides to them. What these results reveal is that there is a silent revolution that is taking place in our schools. It's a silent revolution that is underway. As we see these children improving and getting better, schools must be safe and allow for effective learning and teaching. The Sanitation Appropriate for Education initiative, known as SAFE, together with government's Accelerated School Infrastructure Delivery Initiative, has built 55,000 appropriate toilets with resources from the public and the private sector. To produce the skills our country needs, we are expanding the vocational education and training system through the implementation of the approved curriculum of the 3 streams model. This year, government plans to finalize the comprehensive student funding model for higher education, particularly for students who fall outside the current NSFAS criteria, reaching those who are known as the missing middle. Now, honorable members, violent crime takes a heavy toll on every South African. Communities across our country live in fear for the safety of their families. This situation cannot continue and must not continue. We are strengthening the South African Police Service to prevent crime and improving the capacity of the National Prosecuting Authority and courts to ensure that perpetrators are brought to justice. This includes putting more police on the streets and setting up specialized units that will focus on specific types of crime. Last year, we undertook to recruit 12,000 new police personnel. Since then, more than 10,000 new recruits graduated from police academies, and a further 10,000 will be recruited and trained this year. Now, the specialized police teams that are working on tackling crimes like kidnapping, extortion, illegal mining have had several breakthroughs, arresting dozens of suspects and achieving several convictions. Firm action is being taken to tackle economic sabotage and related crimes that are causing great damage to the economy. Multidisciplinary economic infrastructure task teams are now operational in 20 identified hotspots. Last year, I drew attention to the enormous damage caused by the theft of copper cable and metal from our electricity system, from our train lines and other public infrastructure. Since then, the police have been cracking down on cable theft. In December, government introduced a temporary ban on the export of scrap copper cable and certain metals to disrupt criminal syndicates and to enable a new trading system to be put in place. Now, so you know, a number of countries on our continent have done exactly the same, because they have been suffering from exactly the same problem that we are. Just as we have embarked on economic reforms in electricity, water, telecommunications, and logistics through Operation Vulindlela, we are embarking on a process of reform to improve the effectiveness of our fight against crime. We will use our competitiveness in call center operations to support the proper functioning of the 10111 helpline, partnering with the private sector. I've heard reports from a number of people, some of them who've even written to me, saying that as they make contact with the 10111 line, it goes unanswered most of the time. Now, we are going to resolve this and address this problem. This is to ensure that when people call the police, their calls are answered and their emergencies are attended to. We will also use data-driven methods in a more sophisticated way to identify target crime hotspots. Significantly, more funding will be made available in the budget that the minister will announce for the police, the National Prosecuting Agency, and the Special Investigating Unit, gender-based violence and femicide. What progress we have made in implementing the National Strategic Plan, which we adopted as a comprehensive, effective, and united response to this pandemic. One of the great successes of our effort to fight gender-based violence is the extent to which social partners have rallied around the National Strategic Plan. In January last year, I signed into law 3 pieces of legislation that afford greater protection to survivors of gender-based violence and ensure that perpetrators are no longer able to use legislative loopholes to evade prosecution. We continue to improve the accessibility and functioning of sexual offences courts and expand the network of Thuthuzela care centers. A key aspect of the National Strategic Plan is the economic empowerment of the women of our country. Since announcing our determination to direct at least 40% of public procurement to women-owned businesses, we have sought to establish an enabling environment to support women entrepreneurs. We have trained more than 3,400 women-owned enterprises to prepare them to take up procurement opportunities that are available in government. Through the Women's Economic Assembly, we have seen industry associations and companies committing to industry-wide gender transformation targets. The Industrial Development Corporation has earmarked approximately 9 billion rand to invest in women-led businesses. Other entities, including the PIC and the National Empowerment Fund, have also committed to establish special purpose vehicles to support women-owned businesses. We must all play our part as individuals, as well as in institutions and leaders across society to end these crimes against women and children. Last year, I said that we would take decisive action against corruption and make a clear break with the era of state capture. The State Capture Commission, headed by Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, completed its work and submitted the final report of its report in June last year. As a country, we owe Chief Justice Zondo, together with the Commission and its staff and all those who provided testimony, a huge debt of gratitude for the extraordinary public service that they have shown. The recommendations of the Commission are being implemented according to the plan that I submitted to Parliament in October last year, so that systematic weaknesses that were identified by the Commission are addressed and state capture never takes place ever again in South Africa. The National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, consisting of people from across society, is in place to advise on suitable mechanisms to stem corruption, including the overhaul of the institutional architecture of combating corruption. We are working to capacitate the Witness Protection Unit and will introduce amendments to the Protected Disclosures Act to strengthen protections for whistleblowers. Work is underway to improve access to the Witness Protection Program for public servants that expose maladministration, corruption, and unethical conduct. We will finalize the draft public procurement bill to address weaknesses identified by the State Capture Commission and improve efficiency, value for money, and transparency in our procurement system. Our reinvigorated law enforcement agencies are taking firm action against companies and individuals alleged to have been involved in state capture. The NPA, the investigating directorate, which I established in 2019, has taken 187 accused persons to court in 32 state capture corruption cases. Over 7 billion rand has so far been returned to the state from state capture cases. To date, 12.9 billion rand of funds and assets have been frozen. This year, the investigating directorate will be established as a permanent entity within the NPA. Now, to achieve any progress in addressing the urgent challenges that we face, we need a capable and effective state. Our greatest weaknesses are in the state-owned enterprises and in local government. Many of our SOEs are struggling with significant debt, with underinvestment in infrastructure, and of course, with the effects of state capture and shortage of skills. We will implement the recommendation of the Presidential SOE Council to establish a state-owned holding company as part of a centralized shareholder-owner model to ensure effective oversight over our SOEs. Separately, I have instructed the Presidency and the National Treasury to work together to rationalize government departments, entities, and programs over the next 3 years. National Treasury estimates that we could achieve a potential saving if we restructure government of some 27 billion rand in the medium term, if we deal with the overlapping mandates, close ineffective programs, and consolidate entities where appropriate. The poor performance of many local governments remains an area of concern. Too many of our municipalities, 163 out of 257, are dysfunctional or are in distress due to poor governance, ineffective and sometimes corrupt financial administrative management, and poor service delivery. The government is implementing a number of interventions to address failures at local government and to improve basic service delivery as well. Now, these include enhancing the capacity of public representatives and officials, maintaining and upgrading local infrastructure, and invoking the powers of national government to intervene where municipalities fail to meet their constitutional responsibilities. A professional public service staffed by skilled, committed, ethical people is critical to an effective state and ending corruption and patronage as well as wastage. Now, in response to the State Capture Commission and in line with the framework for the foundation of the public service, integrity assessments will become mandatory requirements for recruitment to public servants, and entry exams will also be introduced. We are amending legislation and strengthening the role of the Public Service Commission to ensure that qualified people are appointed to senior management positions and to move towards creating a single, harmonized public service. Just as we are committed to improving the fortunes of our countrymen and women and to advancing shared prosperity for all, so should be our commitment to achieving a better Africa and a better world. We are greatly concerned at the recent escalation of tensions between Israel and Palestine and call for an end to hostilities for a resumption of the stalled peace process. South Africa expresses its deepest condolences to the people of Turkey following the devastating earthquake that they experienced earlier this week. As a country, we are immensely proud of the efforts of the gift of the givers who have gone out to help those affected by the earthquake. As they go out there, they are flying the South African flag, and we are really grateful and proud of them. We remain deeply concerned about the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict and urge all parties to that conflict to cease hostilities and seek a peaceful solution through dialogue. South Africa's fortunes are inextricably linked to those of our continent and also to the Southern African Development Community in particular. For the sake of our own stability and prosperity, we are duty-bound to pursue interventions that will bring peace, stability, and development in our continent and in our own sub-region. We will continue to get involved in the peace efforts that we need to get involved in. We will continue to expand trade and investment opportunities with our global trade partners and will look to attract investment and financing to South Africa through our participation in multilateral forums such as the G20, which we will host in 2025. This year, South Africa assumes the chairship of BRICS. Our focus will be on collaboration, on sustainable development, the just energy transition and industrialization, and implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. South Africa, together with our neighbors in the Southern African Customs Union, will soon finalize our industrial offering on the African Continental Free Trade Areas so that we can start trading. Once fully operationalized, the Continental Free Trade will provide an unprecedented opportunity with regard to economic integration, with regard to growing national economies, and will open up new frontiers and markets for our South African companies. Fellow South Africans, as I conclude, a nation Through character is revealed in times of crisis. A nation is defined by its people. More importantly, how its people the democratic values of dignity, equality, and freedom. More importantly, how its people, the democratic values of dignity, equality, and freedom, and the rights of each one of us. The actions we have outlined this evening, building on the work we have already done, will bring us closer to that vision. Yes, there have been stops and starts, there have been detours, but yes, they will bring us to that vision. They will enable us to work together and to work together with purpose to emerge from this crisis as a nation that is transformed. We will emerge from this crisis with an electricity system that is more efficient, more reliable, more competitive, and an electricity system that serves with broadband access for more South Africans in more parts of the country, and with a sustainable supply of quality water. We will welcome more tourists to our country and develop and attract the skills our country needs. We will create work for those who are unemployed, and we will give hope to those who have waited too long. With more police on the street, with the functioning of community policing forums, and an effective and independent prosecution authority. Our people will be able to count on the protection of the state, and fewer households will experience hunger. We must do all these things, not only to overcome our immediate challenges, but to renew the promise of South Africa. It is a promise that we have kept alive in our hearts and in our actions. This year, it will be 10 years since we bid farewell to Nelson Mandela, the father of our democracy, our beloved Madiba. It will also be a period when, yes, he would have been, it will be also 105 years since his birth. As we honor his great life and his memory, I think we should draw inspiration from the words he spoke at his inauguration in 1994 when he said, "Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society which all humanity will be proud. Our daily deeds as ordinary South Africans must produce an actual South African reality that will reinforce humanity's belief in justice, strengthen its confidence in the nobility of the human soul, and sustain our hopes for a glorious life for all," close quotes. Now, to build such a society, to overcome the great difficulties of the moment, we need one behind. And we need to stay the course. We need, as a nation at this time more than at any other, to reveal our true character. We need to work together and, as I said, leave no one behind. I've often asked myself, as president, and asked myself, why am I doing this job? I've often asked myself that. And there's that voice inside of me that always says, I want you to listen, because you have your own voices. This voice always says,
Order.
Follow in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela. Because he made great sacrifices. He didn't have to do what he did for this country, but he made great sacrifices. And that voice always says, contribute the little that you can to make this country great. And that is precisely what I am doing. Despite all the challenges that we face, I would call on all of us to make the contribution that we can to serve the people of South Africa as much as we possibly can. I thank you, and I wish everyone good night.
I thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members, may you please take your seats. Take your seat, honorable member at the back there. Please take your seat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members, earlier on, Honorable Steenhuisen raised a point of privilege about the presence of security forces on the floor of the House without the permission of the presiding officers. Now, I wish to draw your attention to the provisions of Section 4 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act of Parliament and Provincial Legislature, which states that in the event of violence or a reasonable prospect of violence or serious disruption ensuing in the chamber as a result of a member's resistance to removal, the presiding officer may suspend proceedings, and members of the security services